It was a crisp autumn evening when Lydia decided to visit the coffee shop down the street. The air was cold enough to nip at her skin, and the soft glow of the streetlights illuminated the fallen leaves scattering the sidewalk. Lydia always loved the solitude of late-night coffee runs. There was something soothing about the quiet hours when the world seemed to sleep. The coffee shop, 𝕭𝖑𝖆𝖈𝖐, stood at the corner of an old cobblestone street. Its warm, golden light spilled onto the sidewalk, and the faint hum of a jazz tune welcomed her as she pushed the heavy wooden door open. Inside, the shop was empty except for the barista, a young man with tired eyes, and a solitary man sitting at the far corner of the room. Lydia noticed him immediately. He was hard to miss, dressed in a long black trench coat. The man sat rigidly, his face obscured by a sleek black mask. The mask was devoid of expression, its smooth surface reflecting the faint light from the overhead bulbs. He was hunched over a steaming cup of coffee, his gloved hands cradling it as if it were the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. A chill ran down Lydia's spine. She shook it off, reminding herself that it was just a strange man in a mask. People had their quirks, especially in the city. "Can I get a mocha, please?" she asked the barista, trying to ignore the man's presence. As she waited for her drink, she couldn't help but glance in his direction. He didn't move, didn't drink his coffee, didn't even seem to breathe. Lydia felt a growing unease, but she brushed it aside. After all, it wasn't her business. The barista handed her the mocha with a small smile. She nodded in thanks and chose a seat near the window, far from the masked man. Outside, the street was deserted, save for the occasional rustle of leaves carried by the wind. Minutes passed, and the air in the coffee shop grew heavier. Lydia sipped her drink, trying to focus on the soft music playing overhead, but her attention kept drifting back to the man. She realized something odd. His coffee was still steaming untouched, though he'd been sitting there long before she arrived. Suddenly, the man stood up. Lydia froze, her cup halfway to her lips. He moved slowly, deliberately, his footsteps echoing in the small shop. Without a word, he walked to the door and stepped outside. The barista watched him leave, muttering something under his breath that Lydia couldn't hear. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding, but her relief was short-lived. As she glanced out the window, she saw the man standing across the street, facing the coffee shop. The mask glinted under the dim streetlights, and though his features were hidden, Lydia felt his gaze fixed on her. Her heart raced. She looked back at the barista, but he was busy cleaning the counter, seemingly oblivious. She considered leaving, but the thought of walking past the man outside sent a shiver through her. When she looked back out the window, the man was gone. The street was empty again, save for the restless leaves. "Just nerves," she whispered to herself. "It's nothing." But then, the lights inside the coffee shop flickered. Lydia stiffened, clutching her cup tightly. The barista glanced up, frowning. "Must be the wiring," he said. "It happens sometimes." The lights flickered again, then went out completely, plunging the shop into darkness. Lydia's breath quickened as she heard the barista mutter a curse and fumble for a flashlight. And then she heard it, a soft, deliberate tap on the glass window behind her. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't want to look, but some morbid curiosity forced her to. Slowly, she turned her head, her eyes adjusting to the dim glow from the streetlights outside. The man in the black mask was there, standing inches from the glass, his head tilted as if studying her. His gloved hand rested against the window, and though she couldn't see his eyes, she felt their weight pressing into her soul. "Hey!" the barista called, his voice trembling slightly. "Get out of here, man, or I'm calling the cops." The man didn't move. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, then slowly raised a finger to his lips as if to shush them. The lights flickered back on, and just like that, he was gone. Lydia shot to her feet, her heart pounding in her chest. "Did you see that?" she asked the barista, her voice shaking. "Yeah," he said, already reaching for the phone. "I'm calling the cops." Lydia didn't wait. She grabbed her bag and bolted out the door, her breath visible in the cold night air. She glanced around, but the man was nowhere to be seen. The street was empty, eerily silent. She started walking quickly, then broke into a run. The comforting glow of streetlights felt like a spotlight in the darkness, and every shadow seemed alive. She didn't stop until she reached her apartment building, slamming the door shut behind her. As she leaned against the door, trying to catch her breath, her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket, her hands trembling. A new message. No name, just an unknown number. The text read, "You left your mocha behind." Lydia stared at the message, her blood running cold. Then a soft tap came from her window. If you want to see part 2, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Also, maybe don't go for coffee alone at night.